What is fun is that we have a panel now. It's Erik DIEPEVEEN, Dirk de GEUS, Jos en Dongen, Stolen Couch, Paladin, Ronimo Games. And with them is JP, I call him JP, from Dutch Game Garden. And what is Dutch Game Garden is actually quite interesting because we always have interesting discussions, JP and I. He sticks up for the indie scene, and I always say, yeah, but it needs to make money. And then we always conclude that we want to see the passion in the eyes of the entrepreneurs, the developers. And yes, if they have the ambition to raise money, they should be able to raise money, hence our vehicle Game On. Did I say that right, JP?
Yes.
Yes. You left a few things out, but we'll cover
but that's why we have a 50-minute session. Shall we start with Eric? Introduce yourself, quick and dirty.
Niet uitkleden. Let's see if it works. Oh yeah, I'm Erik DIEPEVEEN. I'm the co-founder of Stolen Couch Games. We were founded about 4 years ago, from students from the Utrecht School of the Arts. About 2 years ago, we released Kids vs. Goblins, a premium game for iOS and Mac. It did really poorly after developing it for more than 12 months. Really crappy, like 10,000 Ks, so that's nothing. 3 months later, we released Itchy. That did better. It was downloaded over 600,000 times. We tried to do the premium model, free-to-play, freemium model, advertising. We tried all kinds of ways to monetize this game. We made a bit of profit, but not much, so we decided to do things differently with our next game. In between, we also created the Greenlight Bundle, which is a website where we promote and sell indie games from other developers. Let's move on. Oh yeah. So our previous games didn't sell that well, so what had we to change for the next game? So we saw that social games had a really high frequency of play, but their retention were quite poorly, and we believe that's because they're really boring games. And if you look at the other side of the spectrum, we have single-player games. People are really invested in those kinds of games because they have storylines and characters you care about. So why not combine those games? And that's where we want to be, like high retention and high frequency of play. Everybody wants to stay there, but we really strive to be there. And that's why we created Castaway Paradise. And Castaway Paradise is created on top of our casual framework built upon Unity. And this framework allows us to quickly reiterate these types of games. So all the technology you see here is created specifically for our framework. So, for example, our narrative designers, they can write and they can create quests without any programmers involved. And we have online multiplayer and leaderboard analytics, all those types of technologies. And with this framework, we can actually create a new game in less time than our previous games. And that's a great value for our company. The way we want to monetize our next free-to-play games, like Castaway Paradise, is through in-app purchases, obviously, dual currencies, subscription model, which is something that not a lot of mobile games are doing, and we think there's huge potential there. And also product placement is huge potential there. For example, here you can see a mock-up for UPS, how they can deliver packages in our game. This is our launching schedule. So we've been working on Castaway Paradise for more than a year and a half, and all our next games will have shorter development times. So Castaway Paradise has been launched in Canada since November as a beta, and in the coming 5-6 months we will release it worldwide, and then 6 months or 8 months later we will release the next game, and which will be heavily influenced by Castaway Paradise, so similar games skinned differently. Last September we got our first investment of 100K, a small investment that lasted us a few months. And right now we're in the middle of closing the next deal for $250,000. And that will allow us to soft launch and launch Castaway Paradise. And we might need a next investment, but it depends on the revenues we'll get from our game.
Can
So
you say something about your burn rate then?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Can you say something about your burn rate?
Our burn rate?
Yeah.
Okay, we founded Southern Couch with 5 members, 6 members, now at 5 members, and we're growing the team. So right now there are about 11 people in our company. So then you can figure out the burn rate.
Are you paying high salaries or low salaries?
Sorry?
Are you paying high salaries or low salaries? Because then I can calculate.
Well, it depends. For the Netherlands, they're quite low, but internationally they might be quite average.
Okay.
As you can see, Castaway Paradise is basically Animal Crossing but free to play. And that's pretty much brilliant. And no one else is doing that. So that's awesome for us. So you can develop your own island and you can decorate it and you have endless amounts of quests and there are interactive storylines. So there's lots of content and there will be online multiplayer. So it's an ever-expanding world, like the game as a service, and we hope to support this game for the years to come. And that's basically our presentation. So thank you.
All right, Derek.
So I just slide it. Does this work? Just tap it. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. So hi everybody. I'm Derek, Derek de GEUS from Paladin Studios. We're kind of I would say we're the bootstrapping part of this panel. We do a lot of work for hire projects, and yeah, basically we have a nice team in The Hague. We have a nice office, basically an old refurbished factory. You see it a lot in the Netherlands these days, where they redesigned the whole place. So we're with 10 people, depending on the season. Our goal is to make people smile, and we try to do that with our own games, like Jimmy Pataya. This is a game that we built as a test case. We built it in 2 weeks, and we launched it on the App Store. And our biggest self-published title so far is Momonga Pinball Adventures. That's basically a pinball adventure game where you play through different levels and you have all these enemies and boss fights, and there's a character and storyline, everything. So we self-funded this project, and we fund it basically with the revenue that we get from our paid clients. So we do things like this and this. Actually, okay, let me explain a little bit because it's widely varied. The previous one was a racing game for a toy manufacturer. They create these RC cars, and they basically said, hey, we want a brand game. This game is for a healthcare provider in the Netherlands, where you basically learn to be wise, which is an interesting challenge to tackle. It's a 2D adventure game. This is a city builder for the European Commission. We got the challenge to create a city builder that would educate people about energy. And the goal is to create a sustainable city. Right now we're working on a project with DNA. And I can't say too much about it, but it's something to do with golf. And it's going to be out on mobile pretty soon. Some screenshots on this. So this is what we're working on now. I think I have the trailer of Momonga. Shall I skip to that just a little bit? So I got a couple of helpful slides in the end, but this is for later. These are not real numbers, how we manage our cash flow, basically. And this is the trailer for Momonga. If it works. Does it work? Yeah, okay. Sound. Was it on? Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so no audio. Should I do the sound effects myself? Okay. Bling, bling. Time to roll. Thank you.
Can I ask one more question? Your model, how does it look like? Do you sell the games or is it free to play?
With Momonga and Jimmy Pataya, those are both paid downloads. Bad choice. That's all I can say. At least on mobile.
So your next game will be free to play then?
Yeah. Yeah. Probably. Depends on the platform. Yeah.
Cool.
Did I just hear an interested investor asking questions?
Yes.
Nice. I think it's working. Oh, I should just tap. Okay. Okay, so my name is Joost van Dongen. I'm one of the founders of Ronimo Games, and I'm lead programmer there. We've been around for 7 years now. Well, in 2 weeks for 7 years. We were founded by 7 students of the Utrecht School of the Arts. And, well, our basic premise is that we want to make, well, cool games, and that's the driving force. We want to make stuff that we really like, that we think is awesome. Our core principle when we wonder whether we should make something is whether everyone in the studio likes it, or at least as many people as possible. We think that with a team of 7, and at the moment we're actually 19 people already, but with a team that large, if most people like an idea, then it's probably a good idea. So that's our core philosophy in what we make and why we make it. The thing does skip. Okay, so we started off with a big project before this one that completely failed. We worked for 1.5 years on Snowball Earth. We looked for a publisher. We didn't find one. So back then we were looking for large funding, things like that. That didn't work out. So we started working on Swords and Soldiers. We funded that ourselves entirely. Or well, ourselves, it says Artist Welfare. At the time there was still the WWIC, which is a small fund from the government that disappeared in the meanwhile. But it means that if you can live off 600 euros a month, then you can start a company basically. So we were just fresh out of school, so we were still used to living on small amounts of money per month. And the company ran on that for several years before we started really making money. Swords and Soldiers is well, it's basically side-scrolling StarCraft. It's a real-time strategy game, but seen from the side. By now that's quite a common thing, but at the time that was a really novel and new idea, and it changed a lot of things. It makes for really interesting gameplay. And since then we've ported this to a whole series of platforms. Something is happening. Okay. So the game we made after that, this is our big success game, AwesomeNauts. We released this 1.5 years ago. It's an online multiplayer game. It's very like League of Legends and Dota, but again, seen from the side, it's a platformer. And that changes everything. It makes it a very different game. It makes it much more action-packed, much faster. It says on this slide that this is a casual game, but it is only casual compared to League of Legends, which is the most hardcore game in the world, basically. So at a festival like this is not a casual game. This is AwesomeNauts is actually extremely hardcore. It's just that there are even more hardcore games around. Okay, so this game we funded partially with the income from Swords and Soldiers, and we funded it partially with a publisher who invested an amount of money and did publishing duties. So the second half of the funding was a very traditional publisher deal. Yeah. Let's see. My colleague Jasper is ill today. I'm actually replacing him today, so I look at the slides and I wonder, well, what I'm going to talk about. Okay, the big thing for us that we are most known for at the moment, I guess, is that we did a big Kickstarter. We raised about $450,000, I think, in total, with PayPal, combined with the PayPal feature. And for an expansion to AwesomeNauts, and that's by far the biggest crowdfunding project in the Netherlands so far. I think even outside games, it's the biggest one. Well, we're expanding the game with that. And yeah, so crowdfunding, the big advantage is, of course, you can get money without getting an investor or a publisher. The people who give you money don't need to own part of the company or part of the IP, anything like that. The biggest thing I think of crowdfunding is that if you do it well, it's a gigantic marketing thing, and that's definitely what it did for us. It's a huge surge in how much people talk about the game, things like that. So it's really good for community involvement. And it also gets you a lot of money if you do it well. There are, of course, downsides to it. Crowdfunding is an enormous amount of work. I think so far we spent around 12 man-months just on running the Kickstarter, not on actually making any content for the game, but just on making the page, replying to people who ask questions, all the management around it. And it's really difficult to get a crowd around in the first place. Basically, you need to already have a success, or you need to be well known, or you need to be crazy lucky and have something really special. Yeah, and we do new content for AwesomeNauts continuously, and we constantly add new stuff. AwesomeNauts is a premium game, by the way. You pay once for it, and then you can just play it. And we have a lot of DLC as well, so it has some free-to-play elements, but no free-to-play element, but a lot of DLC things to make money on it and keep selling the game. But basically, you just need to pay to play. And I think I'll skip this now. Well, basically, we have a really huge community. Let's keep to that.
Can I ask you quickly something?
Yes.
Can you go a few slides back to that crowdfunding?
If I can figure out how. Oh, yeah. It's really interesting that this iPad slows it 5 seconds later than that screen.
Yes. And then you said it's really difficult.
Yes.
And if you now forward to the community slide where you say we have a huge community, am I missing something then?
Well, it's not difficult for us because we have a huge community, but most people who do crowdfunding don't have that yet.
No, but what I'm trying to say is, did you try crowdfunding and you find it difficult? Because maybe I'm misunderstanding you.
What I mean is that most crowdfunding projects, at least in the Netherlands, fail or are about very small amounts of money. And to make a crowdfunding project a success, you basically need to be well known already. And if you're not well known already, then it's really difficult.
Okay, so there is a presentation later on, Jan from Germany, Jan Wagner, and that is about crowdfunding, and it has some very interesting insights that maybe you guys can also maybe use in the future, because it is possible. I think you need to look at some models and some advice that he's definitely going to give this afternoon. I think it's around 3.
Are you saying, whoa, Reinoud, are you saying it's possible for an unknown studio? That's what you mean?
Yeah, maybe you have to set the boundaries a bit, not say like, okay, we're going for 1 million, but something that is feasible and that can be successful. And maybe start with a lower amount where you can actually make sure that the IP is ready with a bit of marketing money on top of it, but not extreme. Sometimes people go for 500,000. Yeah, that might be difficult. But yeah, good presentation.
Great. Oh yeah, I see what you mean. So, I see what you mean with the delay. It takes about 5 seconds to... Anyway, quickly background check here. My career started in 1998 in the Dutch small game industry with 6 companies total. Today we have over 300 companies, so I've seen that whole change going on. One of the big reasons for that is the educational programs that started around 2000, and that's where a lot of the companies were born that today we call the indies. My background is art and design for game development, moving into management. I co-founded a studio called W Games at the Dambrak here, which produced the first Wii game in 2007. And after that, I moved to the Dutch Game Garden because I also taught classes at the school, and some of my favorite students were starting companies, and I saw a great opportunity to help them boost their business. And Ronimo Games is one of them, and later on, Stolen Couch came and joined the program, and that's one of the reasons it's really fun to work with these companies. For the background, for me, it's important to know that with the investment, the W Games company, I was actually the one doing the quarterly presentations to investors, so I've seen that side of the coin, and I've seen the self-funded indies. We have this big building in Utrecht with 45 companies, of which 12 are in an incubation program. In total, we've incubated 20 companies over the last 5 years, and we've boosted 65 companies in total with all sorts of facilities. These are some of the logos some of you may recognize. The ones that we're known for in our incubation are, oh actually I forgot to add yours. Oh no, you have this little animated slide, watch that. So Ronimo Games, of course, Flambeer, Ridiculous Fishing, Game Oven with Fingal, a game that did really well on iPad. Rose, which came out on Steam, we did really well, 300,000 in 3 months. Metrico is still coming out, and Stolen Couch, of course, ready to launch their next game. Let's see if it happens. Whoa. So, I don't know if any of you ever saw this article. It was in Gama Sutra a couple of years ago, called the Mindy. The Mindy is kind of this person stuck between indie and mainstream. Basically, it's an indie that thinks it's okay to make money. If you really should read it, it's a great article. It really talks about this indie mentality versus mainstream, and it seems to be the only two possible extremes, which of course is not true. These guys here are indies, they want to make their own stuff, they want to be creative, and they want to always own the creative decisions in the end. At the same time, they also want to make money. They need to. They're realistic about that. And Reinout, they are making money. But Reinout is asking themselves, they could make so much more money. And that's what we're going to be talking about. But we're going to be talking about funding today. So I will be asking them. I know them personally really well. I know what they do. And I'm going to try and actually get some insight. Help you guys crawl into their brain and understand why they would or would not take investment from an external party, or what other ways they can fund. And I also like to move around, so I'm actually going to grab this mic a little bit loose. Here.
In the meantime, I'll have you ever been approached by VCs or investors from Holland? Have you had approaches, and what came out of it?
Thanks, that was my first question.
Well,
I'm going to shut up now.
We have approached VCs ourselves. The problem with VCs at a startup age is that they're not really interested, and also that they don't have much experience with games per se. And VCs would like to boost your company and make it big, and if they don't have any experience with game companies, it's hard to do. So
why are they not interested?
Why are they not interested? Well, because the games industry is hit-driven.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And I think it's just a difficult market to understand if you're not from the games industry yourself.
Yeah. So you gave a speech on the poor performance of your games last year in Hamburg at Casual Connect.
Yeah, it was a really long speech.
Yeah, really long speech. And one of the guy in the room actually decided he wanted to fund you.
Yeah, that's absolutely what happened. So we gave a presentation how our previous games failed and how we're changing our views and how we are changing our company to compensate for the problem. And immediately after, one of the investors came to us and he offered us the 100K. He said, I believe in what you're doing and this should help. Yeah. And it did.
and were you looking for funding at the time?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so you're already open to it?
Yeah, we just, at the start of this previous year, in January, we decided that we were going to look for investors, and in February we had an investor.
So you are actually on the table. You're the only company that is actually being funded right now by external investors. Dirk, you have funded a game completely by yourself.
Yep.
Why did you do it that way?
Basically, I think the main reason is because we could.
You could.
And we could put it in. We had the money not readily available, but we just decided to take our time and really build the game that we wanted to make, and self-funded. Yeah, I had some cash, so I just invested that in the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the budget then?
Yeah.
The budget of the game, what was it?
It depends on how you look at it, because of course we did it in our spare time. The numbers range between 200,000 euros and you could probably, depending on the hourly rate, you could go up from there, at least 200K. Yeah.
And did you try to get investors? Did you consider that?
No, I've been talking to some investors, just nothing formal or anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't work out somehow.
No?
I don't know. It just didn't fit.
Did they understand the game industry?
No.
No.
So I think that the match wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And for Momonga, we did. We were in talks with some publishers that were actually offering us an advance as well.
Yeah.
So we could have used that funding to build the game and improve
Right.
it. But in the end, we decided to do it ourselves because it would give us more, not necessarily creative freedom or anything, but more flexibility in how we wanted to pursue the production of the game. So there were no deadlines. There were no, you know. We basically said we just got to keep giving client work priority, and that's what we did. So
And would you consider investors if there's the right match?
of course, if there's the right match, then absolutely.
Okay.
But that said, I do think that it will be very hard for, let's put it this way, we're not in a phase like you guys or anything where we have something with a big scheme like
Scalable.
a platform or
Yeah.
anything.
You don't think your products are interesting to investors?
I think they are, and we have a very solid plan with Momonga. Like it's this world and it's IP. It's really something that we can build upon for the future. You know, the characters are very well defined, and it's something that we would love to do for the future. But I think at this point, an investment for us would be very expensive in terms of dilution. So
In terms of what?
in terms of dilution, so
Okay.
you have to give away a lot of shares.
I see. You think it's too early to talk to them?
I think it's too early.
Okay.
And for me, the moment I would seriously consider investment is when we are at that point when we have a minimum viable product, we have it out there, we can prove that it works, and then we are ready to scale it up.
Okay.
I think that would be the point where we
All
would
right.
consider it.
And then you feel you'll be stronger at the table.
Sorry, yeah,
You'll be stronger.
We have
Yeah.
a stronger
Yeah.
negotiation position. Yeah.
Joost, you guys, have you ever considered investors, outside investors? Have you considered them? Have you ever considered
Yes, we
partnering?
have. We've gone through the whole, well, not the whole, but we've gone through these investment programs at several points.
Pull up the mic a bit. Yep. Yep.
We've gone through these investment programs where we followed courses on how to pitch to investors, and then we did quite a lot of pitches to investors actually throughout the years. But it turned out that it always doesn't, what an investor wants doesn't align with what we want to do. And well, we had those experiences, and I went to quite a lot of talks, presentations at conferences like this about investors, and it always came down to that what they said that an investor was looking for totally didn't align with what we wanted to do. So at some point we decided, well, let's just skip this whole topic. It's not going to work unless we do something totally different and something that we don't want to do.
And how was it different? What were they looking for as opposed to you?
Well, as far as we know, almost all investors are looking for exit strategies, for growth plans, for how are you going to become gigantic in the next 5 years and then sell off for a gigantic amount of money. But we're not even interested in growing it that way. In our ideal case, we would make one really good game every year, period. We're not interested in more than that. We just want to make really good games. And if you go to an investor, as far as we know and as far as we've experienced, all investors want these gigantic dreams. They basically want you to sell them that they're going to get all of heaven. It's just going to be theirs. And if you don't have these fancy plans and actual plans for how you're going to grow really big and conquer the world, then they're not interested.
Okay.
But they were interested in your company, even though you didn't have. They were interested in your company, even though you didn't have a real plan for your business.
We had a business plan, but we didn't have a business plan that meant that we would grow a lot in the period. That's a big difference.
Okay.
How big is your studio? How big is your studio right now?
19 people.
Okay. And is that about the max for you?
We're currently looking for a programmer, so no, but
Okay.
it is about the size that we are looking for. We're not.
Okay.
We don't want to be 30 people, for example. That's really too big, we think.
And why is that?
Different. It gives a different company culture. Right now, we have a big lunch where everyone is shouting at each other, and that's a lot of fun, things like that. And as you grow larger, at some point, you need to split it over 2 tables, and then it becomes groups and things like that. That sounds really silly, but when you're smaller, there's a certain synergy in the team. There's a certain simplicity to communication and things like that. And the bigger you grow, we already see that now, that there's a lot of overhead and a lot of extra things. Like I've spent the past 2 days, all of it, on making plannings for everyone. And when we were 7 people, it was impossible to spend 2 whole days on plannings. Because that wasn't needed. So there's a lot of overhead, a lot of social things that become different, that become more a corporate culture than a group of friends.
Okay.
That final thing is basically it. We want to be a group of friends, and from a certain size, it's difficult to just be that.
And don't you think there's going to be an investor where with together you can be friends and actually grow together and still have that company culture and be successful at the same time, multiply what you're doing now?
Well, in theory, maybe, but in practice, we've never encountered anyone that came even close to that kind of vision. And we've talked to a lot of people who do consultancy, like they're in between developers and investors. They couple people, and well, we've talked to quite a lot of those, and they all said, "Oh well, forget it. This is not going to work." So in theory, maybe. In practice, no.
Yeah. But Eric, you seem to have found those people. How's that for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't recognize ourselves in what he just sketched, because the people we've talked to, and most of them are informals, and a lot of them, they have a lot of cash.
Yeah.
And and they like to give back.
Yeah.
So they try to fund one or multiple startup companies.
Give back
Give
without
back
getting...
to the community.
Okay, so like patron of the arts.
Yeah. And the interesting thing,
But they want something back too, right?
yeah, but we've talked about what our investors want, and we talked about exit strategy, and none of them actually seriously talked about an exit strategy. Like, yeah, an exit would be nice if you get bought by Singa or something, but it's not why we're investing in you.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. It's not the same as the people Ronimo has talked to.
So do you think that if Joost would run into the same people that it would work?
Well, I think they have a really clear vision of what they want, and I think they've grown into, as I said, like a family. And I don't think you can add someone to your family that easily.
Okay. Is Game On interested in funding family companies?
No.
Why not?
No, I like the story, and I'm thinking about the model behind it. Now, if one game per year would really rock in terms of revenues, then obviously you will become cash flow positive. That could be an angle to say, like, yeah, I can invest in it. But the comfort zone that has to happen every year again makes it also quite risky. Because yeah, you're going to look at a return on investment from the money you put in. So I could find a model to invest in, but I guess you and I will never be agreeing on the fact that after 5 years we would like to see the money back with X multiple.
And what kind of X multiple are you talking about?
Preferably 100 times, but the original founders or investors in Natural Motion actually, I think, made a multiple of almost 100. But let's start with 3 to 4.
Okay.
That would already be nice.
Okay. Dirk, how does that sound? 3 times, 4 times as much money that comes out as you put in together.
Sign
maybe?
me up. I have some bitcoins left that I could invest. I mean, I'm good.
Do you do bitcoins?
Well, no.
Actually, I would
we
like
have a
to-
platform, virtual currency platform. So put them in there.
Cool. I think it's an interesting point, and this comes down to kind of why are you in business, right? Is it purely for the money and the returns? Not saying that it's evil or greedy or anything. It's a valid way of doing business, right? I mean, we all have to eat. The other approach is that you're in it to make a living, and I think those two approaches are very, very different. And I think that's the conflict that you see here, where investors they have a different outlook. They care about the companies and the products and the players, but they don't. They care about it because it brings in money. Talking from my perspective, and I think actually it goes for all three of us here. We care about making people smile, so that's our goal. And I believe that if you do that, right? I mean, you want to. Okay, maybe not.
I want to smile to the bank. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
In case of AwesomeNauts, it's a competitive game, so we want players to either be
Smash
super
there.
happy or in total rage.
Total rage.
A smile is not good enough.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I want to make
I mean-
I want to make people smile too.
Yeah, your
Because,
investors. Yeah.
because of the bank account or because of the game?
Well, no, both.
Yeah.
Because if see the whole thing is where does it start? Is a chicken and the egg thing.
Exactly.
I couldn't.
That's what I was
couldn't make
getting
a
at.
multiple. I couldn't be happy if in the first principle I wouldn't
Yeah.
have a game that
Yeah.
goes worldwide, goes berserk, everyone likes it. That's actually what we're looking for. And then there is that thing around it that's called finance. Because I don't know how the hell you think you're going to have a very successful game, because you will get all kinds of things of cost that suddenly pop up.
Yep.
I mean, you're going to be confronted with things that you didn't expect, and you need to solve it. Think about hosting, think about payment solutions, etc., etc.
Of course. I mean, this is and this is what I was getting at actually. If you focus on the end user, you focus on the result that you want to achieve. You focus on your kind of your vision first. I mean, and actually, yeah, it's different for every company, so
But
it's fine.
I think
But then the money and the good companies, the good business will flow from that. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I see a lot of indie developers. They're not in it to make the end user happy, but they get happy by making games. And I talk to them about why are you not looking for an investor, and why aren't you monetizing your game better? And they always say that, well, I want to create a cool game because that is what I love. And it's just a different mindset. If you just switch the button in your head, like you can actually make a really good game and focus on monetization as well. And because game designers, we manipulate the player into going in that corridor. And you can do the same in order to monetize your game better. You can manipulate your player to do that purchase. And you will get just as much satisfaction from manipulating the player that way than in the other way. And we've made that decision to monetize the game and have fun in actually monetizing your game. And a lot of other indies are not doing that, and I think that's the real shame.
And you don't feel like you sold out?
No.
Right. You're still doing what you love. You're still enjoying it.
Absolutely, and I'm creating a sustainable business in the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there might be a difference also in pay-to-play, free-to-play. So in the sense of you're selling a game, it's ready, you're going to the next IP. And with free-to-play, hopefully, you get the chance to be there. You're busy for 36 months to optimize and to make more money. It's the scalable side. So maybe you don't need, maybe you don't have to raise money at all. So you still can do the stuff with the 19 people. But I think you can only do that with still making good money if you go to free-to-play. Have you considered that?
GEUS?
Or do you want to make a game, is that the principle of the studio? You want to make one great game every year? Or could you actually work for a very long time on a game and come out with new features, new updates, the whole shebang?
We're actually doing that. AwesomeNauts has been out for 1.5 years, and we've been mostly just developing more of AwesomeNauts in the past 1.5 years. And we're going to do that for the coming period as well. Yeah. So we are actually in that model at the moment. So yeah, we've considered that.
But how's your user base? Is it shrinking after you?
No, the user base is at the moment quite stable, and it's a lot bigger than it was in the first half year of the game. So
and what would happen
mostly
if
been growing.
what would happen if you make the game free to play?
Difficult to say. What I know is that we've made a lot of money from just plain sales, and it's really difficult to get that kind of money from free to play. Yeah, so that's one thing. And but I do see that our DLC sales are percentually growing. So we're at the point now where we are. Well, maybe it would be a good idea to become free to play at some point, because it's selling a lot of DLC, and we could make money that way as well and get a larger community. But you should keep in mind that if you have 10 times as many players, but they spend 11 times less, then you're not making more money, despite that you have a much bigger player base. And if you look at the Dutch games industry in the past year, like 3 of the big successes the past year, Ridiculous Fishing, GEUS, and AwesomeNauts, are all not free to play.
Yeah,
and there's not that many big free-to-play successes in the Netherlands.
But maybe the free-to-play evangelist would say, but they could have been even bigger successes if they were free-to-play?
Yeah, that's what they say, but it's not what I see.
Okay.
Because it's not being done, so how can you see it? Yeah,
Chicken egg again?
Well, I mean, I can make a comparison if I would see a lot of developers out there that do free-to-play, and I see them then fail, then your story holds. But if you guys only make pay-to-play, and those become the 3 that are successful, yeah, I can't compare that.
There's always a big discussion about user experience. In your opinion, guys, is free-to-play worse user experience than paid up front? Is that one of the reasons, Joost, that you guys are apprehensive to do this model? Or do you think it's just a business model, or is there actually a combination of creative and business model with free-to-play possible?
Well, it's definitely possible to do a good free-to-play game. I mean, Dota 2 is, well, their free-to-play model is definitely not hurting the game. But I'd say that for 99% of the games, the game is worse because it's free-to-play.
Okay. Yeah, I don't agree.
All right, so you're saying there's a lot of bad examples. Eric?
Yeah, obviously we're heavily inspired by Animal Crossing. And I don't know if you played Animal Crossing, but if you plant a tree, you have to wait 24 hours for the tree to grow. And we offer an option to make that faster. So if the player wants to speed it up, he can. If he don't want to speed it up, he gets the same experience as he did in Animal Crossing, a premium game. So it doesn't make the game any worse, it just gives the player an extra option.
As I said, in theory it's definitely possible, and there are good examples of it, but in practice there's a lot of bad examples of it, because, for example, in Animal Crossing, the choice to make that game take that tree take 24 hours to grow is because it gives the game a certain flow. There's a certain ideal duration of how long it takes for a tree to grow. If it's too fast, then the game becomes very different, and it would actually, the original Animal Crossing would be a worse game if they changed these things.
I don't think it will be a worse game. I think you can create a better experience for more people. Some people like to get immersed in that experience, and they want to waste 24 hours of their life waiting for the tree to grow. But some don't have that time, and they just want to speed it up. And with free-to-play games, you can actually monetize that, and that's good for both parties.
Dirk, you have some vision on free-to-play. What is your vision? Like, what would be your most preferred way of executing it as a designer and a player and a businessman?
It really depends on the game and the design. We had Momonga as a paid game up front in mind, and we thought about making it free to play, but it was not possible. It just wouldn't work. So I think in a lot of ways it really depends on the design. Personally, I've played a game called DIEPEVEEN in the past, and I spent a lot of money on that, and I was very happy doing that. I spent 60 euros on a browser game back then. Yeah. It was fine. I liked it. I felt good about spending that money.
You didn't feel ripped off?
Not at all, actually. So, you know, it can be it can be done. Yeah. From a business perspective, I think free-to-play is actually more interesting, because I kind of compare it to opening up a shop. And you have people coming in and they browse around your shop, and you give them a good experience. And you know, some people buy your stuff and other people don't, but you basically give them a good experience. But in reality, it's more like a theme park versus a fun fair, right? A kermis. You have the theme park, you pay up front, and you get a very excellent ride. You know, you have all these awesome things that you can do, and you're set for the whole day. Of course, you have to stand in line all day, but that's fine. At the fun fair, it's all these crazy lights, and they try to lure you in, and you have to pay a euro or 5 euros for 5 minutes of entertainment or 2 minutes of entertainment. You know, it's a different experience. So I think it's kind of a weird metaphor, I guess, but I think it does translate a little bit to the games. So yeah, it depends. I mean, yeah, as a business, I would say it's more sustainable to have recurring revenue every month, building a platform, building a loyal community, having those people engage with your games and your worlds and basically the platform that you're building that community on. I think that's much more interesting in the long run. And it also avoids a lot of the problems that especially the mobile markets have, like the visibility problems. You can slowly grow the community, and if you kind of hit the right mixture of chemicals, if you will, then you can say, okay, now we're going to really scale it up and boost it.
So talk about sustainability. How long have you had your company, Derek?
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, 2005.
And you're moving in the next phase. I know you became a father this year for the first time, so your responsibilities are growing. You've got a,
Yes,
you've got a house,
absolutely.
you've got a wife, kids, la la la.
Yep.
So your expenses are going up.
Yep.
What is your sustainable model? I mean, where is going to be Paladin Studios going to be in 10 years from now?
It's funny that you ask, actually, because from the start we've been doing a lot of work for hire projects. So we do work for clients. So we basically offer game development services to clients. And
does it feel sustainable? Does it feel
yes,
safe?
that's very sustainable.
Yeah.
We pay our staff decent salary.
Yeah.
And I can make a good living, and I think that's very sustainable. Actually, last year we had a failed Kickstarter. We had a failed launch of Momonga. Failed in the sense that, well, it didn't make back the money that we invested.
Yeah.
We still had the best year so far.
Okay.
So, I mean, apparently something's working out there. So
And then
keep
do you
failing.
feel that's enough? Is that something that you can continue on for the next 20 years?
It's hard to predict things if they're in the future.
Yeah, that's
But
true. Who knows?
I think
Yeah.
in terms of strategy, I think we are definitely trying to get the recurring revenue.
Yeah.
So either through revenue share with publishers or by building products ourselves.
Right.
And I think we're slowly bridging that gap from services to products.
Right. Right. How many in the room here are developers? All right, quite a few. How many people here are investors or invest in companies? All right, and service providers? Anyone? No? So, okay, is there anybody who has a question for these guys concerning like maybe funding or anything else? Reinhard, of course you have a question. Yeah.
I still have one. I saw
Okay.
Paul Hamraas and he sneaked out on me there, but he has a company called Gamebitious.
Yeah, crowdfunding.
What are your thoughts for all four of you about that model?
Well, as we create free-to-play games and we don't have a user community yet, crowdfunding is extremely difficult. And Gamebitious also does it with investors, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the model for Gambitious is that they actually get shares in your company.
I don't think they have any good cases yet.
No, they really need to launch, but also some legal stuff. But the idea itself, I mean, I know that Paul's working very hard on it, and he has a group of American people now. They cooperate now.
I think it's a great way to get funding while still maintaining control of your company. So I think it's actually a very good model.
How about Leap Funder? Have you heard of Leap Funder? I mean, Eric, you worked with that concept is similar in a sense.
Yeah, Leap Funder. Leap Funder is basically the same, only you have to do it yourself at first, and then they can help you. They have a platform, and they actually do like a one-click purchase system on your own website, so you can invest in like one click.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
They do all the administration for you, basically.
Yeah, so we decided to go for $250,000 this round on investment, and we could have gotten way more, like 400, 500K, but we decided not to do that because going with just one investor is way easier than having a whole group of people invest in you.
Right.
And you have to maintain them and get them straightened up.
Right. I saw somebody raise their hand with investor. Does this drive you crazy? Just like, oh guys, please think bigger. Please, I can help you grow. I mean, I'm just curious, if anybody here besides Reinhard has an opinion on that? Yeah?
Yeah, it's an interesting diversity of views. On the one hand, you have one business that looks like it's very open to taking outside investors that are the right type. On the other end, you have really folks who are very interested in, and actually physically are spread out this way, who want to stay, let's say, somewhat pure and control the family. And then in the middle, I'm a little perplexed with Paladin because
I know,
you
it's
seem to
amazing.
be taking the opportunity cost of, I would not invest in you to the extent that you're taking corporate clients and doing project work, because for me, the opportunity cost is you have a distraction to actually go and pursue your own IP. So, so you mentioned dilution is a concern for you to have an investor in. But effectively, the opportunity cost of you working for others is dilution, because you are not growing your own intellectual property unless you're reserving those rights from these corporates, which you may be doing. So just some thoughts there.
Yeah.
It just struck me as an interesting
So,
spread.
yeah, so that's actually a very good point. There's a big opportunity cost that is resulting from bootstrapping, and this is something that we've seen firsthand with Momonga. It took us 2 years to build that game. There was one slide where you had this, I don't know, maybe you can get it up, but that's the fragmented development time that we spend on it. So it's you don't have the focus, and you just get slowed down. Actually, I think if we launched it a year earlier,
Is it this
yeah,
one?
this is the schedule for. So the yellow parts are kind of that's the time we spend, the weeks that we spend on Momonga, and the other parts are the other projects that we worked on. So I think if we launched it a year earlier, then we would have made a lot more money actually. So this is something that actually you're right on spot there. And what we try to do is, as much as possible, it doesn't work always, but as much as possible we try to partner with the clients that we work with, get to a revenue share deal if possible. Not always, but if possible then that's great. And also that we preserve some of the IP, especially on the background technology that we make. So this is something that has worked very, very well for us, because along the way we have developed so many systems and kind of technology basically that we can reuse in our future projects. That it really helps a lot. But to be honest, I think if there is one reason to accept outside funding, it will be that reason, precisely. Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't have to, so that we can focus.
So are you ready to fund him now? Yeah.
Can I get back to something that was said earlier? Reinoud mentioned that our model of doing one game a year is really risky and difficult to sustain. That's right, right? You said that, right?
Potential risky.
Sorry?
Potentially risky.
Potentially risky.
Yeah.
Yes, well, that's absolutely true. Especially for Swords of Soldiers and AwesomeNauts. In both cases, if the game had failed, the company would have gone, would have disappeared. So, yeah, it is really risky. We do that deliberately. We made the choice that we either want to make awesome games or we don't want to make games. We don't want anything in the middle. We're not interested in that. But I think I should mention there that many of the other models have the same problem. If you make free-to-play games, well, there's a lot of free-to-play games that also fail, and you cannot make 20 free-to-play games here, or well, maybe you can, but you can also make 20 paid games a year. That's just making smaller games. So I think the whole point of if
We
you
didn't say
fail,
that
you
either, eh?
Sorry?
We didn't say that either. There was a session here before where we actually discussed funding and why are certain game companies get the funding they get. So then you see that amazing amount on VentureBeat, and then you think like, why the hell are they getting it? And that was an actually very interesting session, because it was about founding team. It was about creating then a runway for them, and they have to be agile. So the moment they see that the first game is not working, go to the second, and even the third or the fourth. That is a choice. And I think you have your right and I have my right. So we're never going to solve that problem here. But I see from an investor point of view that it could be very risky if you have suddenly a year where there are no successes. How long and how well are you then buffered with the success of games before? Now, if you take free-to-play, and let's say that you have one thing that goes off, I'm not going to mention Supercell whatsoever, but just a game that suddenly...
Flappy Bird.
Sorry?
Flappy Bird.
For example. And you are lucky and you make 10K a day. I mean, you could potentially start thinking about a new game already. Maybe you can actually say, I'm hiring a few more and still make sure that the DNA remains within my company, because I want to have the lunch at the same time and all your principles you have. It's thinking in opportunities. That's the only thing I'm saying.
We need to wrap it up, I think. Future plans, quick one, all three of you. Joost, where's Ronimo Games in 10 years from now?
10 years from now?
Yeah?
I don't know, we're still making cool games, I hope.
Yeah?
They went to IPO.
Yeah? And Dirk?
I think, yeah, I think in 10 years from now we're going to be bigger. I think we would have transitioned to products
Yeah.
and probably some free-to-play products that are hopefully well balanced
Yeah.
and that can really grow a community. And I
Okay.
hope that we're there. Yeah.
All right. And Eric, will you have like this 100 people studio with offices all over the world?
Yeah, hopefully, and,
Yeah.
and having a cartoon on TV and merchandising
Yeah.
and strippers and
Strippers.
that kind of things, yeah.
All right. Excellent. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. An applause for these guys.